Welcome everyone to the Electrical Culture of Safety Livewire program, where we delve into all the complexities of creating a culture of safety within the electric utility industry. In each episode, we feature interviews with subject matter experts, industry leaders, safety professionals, and field personnel from across the industry, where we discuss ways to develop a collective reflection of the perception, attitudes, and shared experiences of the safety culture within our industry. Welcome to ECOS Livewire.
Well, welcome. Electric Culture of Safety line team. We have a great speaker today, guest speaker, Mike. I consider him what I call a line safety generalist. He's got an extensive background, and that's why I call him that. I don't know anybody else with this diverse of a background. So he gave me his biography. I'm going to read this to you. He gave me a short version, but I don't want to read the short version because, Mike, you'll understand why I call him the line safety generalist. So let's get started before he comes on here. Executive Director, Outside Line Safety, National Electrical Contractors Association, Journeyman Lineman, proud member of IBEW, Local Union 70. Nationally recognized for advancing safety innovation in the electric utility industry, Mike Starner brings over 30 years of experience spanning field operations, management, and industry leadership. As Executive Director of Outside Line Safety for NECA, he leads initiatives that shape safety standards and best practices impacting thousands of electrical contractors nationwide. Mike's extensive influence includes co-chairing the EEI, Joint Contractor Safety Task Force, serving on the Executive Subcommittee for National Electrical Safety Code, and contributing to national safety policy through the OSHA ET&D Partnership Steering Committee. He also serves on the boards of the Electrical Safety Foundation International, the Electrical Industry Certification Association, and the National Cable Splicing Certification Board. Beginning his career as line clearance tree trimmer, then street light servicer for a Maryland-based investor-owned utility, Mike advanced through roles in regional electric operations, substation construction and maintenance, distribution automation, and safety leadership. In 2016, he transitioned back to the contractor side of the industry as division manager for a major utility contractor, and later became director of safety for a nationwide electrical maintenance and testing firm. Experiences that give him a unique 360 perspective on utility safety challenges, and his experience is definitely unique. Mike holds the Certified Utility Safety Professional, CUSP, Construction Health and Safety Technician, and Certified Loss Control Professional, CLCP credentials, representing a rare combination of qualifications in the sector. He is known for influencing safety culture, leading high-profile incident investigations, creating effective training programs, and integrating safety protocols into complex infrastructure projects. As member of the IEEE PES T&D ESMO subcommittee and chair of the IEEE PES T&D ESMO conference, Mike is committed to uniting industry stakeholders, driving collaborative innovation, and ensuring safer workplaces for utility workers nationwide. Mike, how you doing, brother? Welcome aboard.
Wow, you should have used the short version.
Oh my gosh, I almost had to take a break.
Oh my, yeah. Well, we've talked before. You hope that your career gets you, the path that you're on gets you to where you need to be, and certainly all of my experiences have gotten me to where I am today. And I've gotten to meet you. Now we're good buddies, and we get to talk shop here on Livewire. So I can't think of a better introduction than that. And just to say thanks for having me, and let's get with it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is so. Man, your experience, like I said, I recognize your unique experience years ago when we first got together and started talking and collaborating, and you've done every Valentine's Day. Basically, you come out to a electric culture safety, lineman safety national webinar, and we talk shop there like a round table type setting, which to me is one of the most fun ones that I like from you to do and get together with. And it's interesting how the flow goes. So I'm excited that you're here today, and thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, when you talk about your experience, most of my career was, well, now that's starting to not be true anymore now that I'm on the other side of this thing. But most of my career is with the utility, and I came into the trade right after deregulation, and utilities were sort of like wait and see before we start hiring folks. So there was like this hiring freeze pretty much around the country, and I think people who are listening who worked for utilities during the 90s and into 2000s can experience that, testify to that. And one of the good things about it is opportunities were all over the place, right? So you started out, like I said, started out as a streetlight guy, and hey, we need people to get in the lineman program. We're firing that back up again. Okay, we'll throw my hat in the ring for that. And then, of course, with attrition and the baby boomers are starting to kind of move on. I mean, it's just been tons of opportunity throughout my whole career. So it's just being in the right place at the right time. And I love coming to talk to you on Valentine's Day, because I think that reinforces where my heart is. I love this industry. I love the people that help support it and promote it, and you and your organization and all the network that you've built out. I mean, you've just added the co-ops to ECOP, right? And so it's growing and getting bigger and better all the time. And that's a testament to your leadership, Brent. So I don't want to lose that in all this either.
Well, you say that, but I tell you what, I recognize good folks, and I just want to surround myself with the best of the best, and it just makes me look better. But it's not me; it's everybody that's done this, like yourself, Mike. And I appreciate your contribution to everything, man. It's just line work in general.
Well, there's too much to know, Brent. There's too much to know for one person to say I'm an expert. I mean, there's just too much to know. I mean, you think of everything from making sure that you have a safety program that's compliant, all the way to making sure you're managing your insurance metrics, making sure that you have, total worker health programs in place, industrial hygiene, understanding what permissible exposure limits are, and then everything from the, the line side of it. You got to know the work to really protect people from, the things that kill our folks. And so, I mean, to know it all is pretty tough. So the best option is just like you said, surround yourself with people who get it, who know their piece of it, and are willing to share. Well,
talk about sharing. So congratulations on your certified loss control professional certificate. That's a great endorsement. And, I understand it's share with us a little bit about the process of receiving that. That's your most recent, correct?
Yeah. Well, I'm not a credential chaser, but I've learned to see the value of going through the process of receiving credentials. You get to network with folks, you get to understand the various priorities to the industry. So that's one of the reasons why I do it. I first got my CUSP. And that was, I was working for a contractor at the time. It says, listen, all our people get the CUSP, so we need you to go get it. And so, okay, man, I got introduced to, the IP folks and, all the things that they're doing over there, Carla and her team. Mm-hmm. And so that was my first introduction to credentialing myself. I never really thought it was something I needed to have or felt like it was important. And then, I wanted to have something more broadly. So, and we talked before, I never graduated college, so there's certain safety credentials that you can't get because you don't have the degree. Certified safety professional, for example. So that's always kind of been like, oh man, fear of missing out. How come I can't sit for that test and demonstrate what I know just because I don't have the sheepskin? So that always kind of frustrated me. But
that's right.
They do have other designations. That's where the construction health and safety technician came in. But, the certified loss control professional, this is by far one of the coolest programs I got to participate in because of how the program is built and managed. NRECA does a really good job. They have a fellow named Perrin Nicholas that manages the program, who is a true professional, a really great facilitator. And this program consists of four seminars, they call it, and they're week-long events, and you attend in person, and they bring in subject matter experts like we kicked off this call with.
Yeah.
Who can we bring here that knows this particular subject and share it? But I'll tell you, Brent, the coolest thing about it was all the people I met. You know, our industry suffers from silos and isolation. And, you know, whether it's I work for the investor owned, or I work for a cooperative, or, you know, I just work for a small town municipality, or I'm a contractor, or I'm the union, or I'm non-union, or vice, you know, all over the board, you have all these silos. So one of the things that's really cool about the CLC program is I got to break down one of those silos and get to meet a lot of good folks that really care about our industry. It's a whole different pocket of the industry that, unless you're out there shaking bushes and trying to figure it out, you could miss it. And they're doing a lot of good things with safety management there. So if you're somebody that's looking for the next thing where you don't have to be, you know, like a doctorate in science to be able to pass the exam, and you just want to participate in something and use your experience and your knowledge of the industry, look them up.
Yeah, no, that's a great, that's just a great certification to have. And the process, I like it that it's a long, sort of drawn out process, almost like obtaining a college degree in a way.
Yeah.
So
well, you have to develop a capstone project, right? So, you know, you have to identify a need in your organization, develop a procedure or a program around that, and then all the things that support it. So you have to build the training around it. You have to build the tests for the exams. You have to build the instructor notes and instructor guide. You have to build all that out as part of this capstone project. So it's not just like, hey, sit down here and see how you do on a test. And, you know, they help you along the way, develop your skills, and then you finish out the program with something that really takes advantage of everything that you learn.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sort of like, I remember when I was studying electrical engineering back in the day, we had labs, and the labs were really interesting because they're hands-on. So your CLCP, basically, that's what you're doing. You're hands-on. It's like a lab, man. And I tell you what, when you do it, you got hands on it, like you're talking about, you don't forget those things.
Well, and here's what else is cool. I was telling you about the people I met. You know, I don't know how. I mean, I guess the folks that are listening to this that are familiar with the cooperative world and know this, but it was new for me. I mean, these folks that manage safety for the cooperatives, they wear a bunch of different hats. They might be the environmental person. They might also be the fleet manager. They might also be a program manager. Heck, some of these places, they're actually running crews too. So they have an operational role. And, you know, if you're working for a big investor owned, you probably have a really large safety department, and it's, you know, kind of built out in a way based on skill sets or scopes. And if you're working for a contractor, depends if you're working for a big one or a little one based on what you have support around you. But you know, these are folks that's just, you know, one guy's responsible for all that stuff. Man, it's impressive. And their hearts are so into it. And a lot of them are linemen, not all of them, but a lot of them were linemen. I think my personal opinion is it adds a lot of value to a safety role if you understand the work. But it's not a requirement, right? So you had folks in that room that you know, yes, they come with the safety expertise, because we've talked about it before, Brent. You need that spectrum, right? You can't just have, you know, the guy that's been in his tools for 30 years and knows everything about EPZ, and you don't need the person that's been an industrial hygienist for 30 years and knows everything about respiratory protection. You need all of it, right? You need to, across the spectrum, you need to have all those expertise. So, yeah.
Well, you set up a perfect example. I would like to see actually more folks go after these different certifications. And again, like you said, it's not a bragging right. Oh, I've got this and I've got that. No, not at all. It's the fact that you are learning more. And when you learn more, you're able to contribute more to the folks with these different pockets, as you said.
Yeah. Well, they're called continuing education units for a reason, right? I mean, the intention is that you're in a continuous growth mindset. And, you know, too many of our peers, I think, you know, they just attend a conference, collect their points, you know, add it onto the website so they can maintain their credential. But are you really looking at these as opportunities to continuously develop and grow? things are always changing in our industry, not just with the trade, not just with the work itself, but with safety management. You know, we're starting in this whole new world around human and organizational performance, and looking at workers differently as far as being the solution to problems, and how to, you know, do your planning in a way that you take care of as many of your hazards as you can, that you can predict in advance, but also build enough capacity in your work plan so that you can fail safely. These are all new concepts that, you know, you kind of got to be tuned into. I mean, job briefings, the performance of job briefings, we've had that for a long time, but, you know, how do you make sure job briefings are effective? What are some best practices for that? What's the best way to assess the hazards on the work site and then have a discussion around it? There's philosophy. And if you guys have heard me talk before, you've heard me talk about the different philosophies, you know, just like going into the Barnes and Nobles, or you pick it in bookstore and you walk down the leadership development aisle, there's hundreds of books on leadership development. If there was one answer to leadership development, there'd be one book, right? So it's everybody's take on it. It's everybody's philosophy. And if you're a practitioner of safety, you have to always hone your craft. You always have to think, okay, here, I know I kind of understand this issue, but what's a better way to deliver the message? What's a better way to control the hazard? What's a better way to build our program out? You can always refine these things, and the only way you're really going to do it is if you're reading books, which I'm not a great book reader, but reading books is a great way to do it. The next best thing is go to these conferences and or these things like you talked about, these credentialing things, and rub elbows with people and ask questions and get business cards and get on an email distribution list and share ideas and become friends. And before you know it, you'll have a guy that you can call and say, man, I really need to build a respiratory protection program. I don't know where to start. Where should I start? But if you've got the groundwork laid in where you're building relationships, you got half the work already done for you.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, building relationships and, like you said, friends, I call them lifelong friends. And it's amazing how much information that you can glean from everybody's perspective and their skill sets, which are totally different than your skill sets are totally different from mine, and mine different from yours. And it's amazing how much we can grow. Like you talked about all these books. I always look at ourselves as a book. And when you become friends with somebody in our industry and you get their perspective, to me, you're adding a chapter from their book into your book and vice versa. And so you start becoming this larger book of all this information and knowledge, and the growth and the help as you help others increases exponentially by doing these things.
Well, it gives you depth, right? So all these different touch points, if you want to call it that, all these different experiences you have with different people and different settings and different perspectives and all these different things give you that context that you need when you're faced with something new and you need to kind of you got to make a judgment call, right? You have to use your reasoning based on past experiences. When you've exposed yourself to more people and more opportunities, you're going to be able to get the information, deliver the information. That's another key part. Like we have to maintain credibility in safety. You have to be able to stand in front of folks and say, here's why we're doing this. Here's the intent. Here's what's in it for you. We have to be able to engage with folks early on in the process to make sure that we hear them, right? So that they're a part of the process and that they're having, they're able to provide their expertise, because guess what? Workers are the subject matter expert. Yep. I'm not out there every day planting poles and setting wire on it. It's these guys, right? So what are they experiencing day in, day out that's getting in the way? And why are they deviating from some plan that you may have had or some standard that you were applying? Why are they doing that? And instead of going at it like, well, you knuckleheads aren't listening to me, and you say, well, let's learn why you're making these deviations, because you're a master of your art and you're figuring out how to get around things. Why are you trying to get around this thing? And that's where you get to these root causes of issues, whether it's a tool problem, a process problem, a staffing problem, a training problem. If you don't engage early with your workforce, you're not going to get it.
Awesome. Yeah, there's one common denominator, Mike, that I've noticed with the best safety folks that I consider the very best safety folks in the industry around the United States, there's the one common denominator that's almost like a unspoken consensus. And that unspoken consensus is the continuous learning, and which you're doing. And to me, that should be embraced. And it's almost like a hidden deep truth in a tool to expand, to take care of people even better, is that continuous learning. And it is a consensus that I have noticed, recognized throughout our industry, is that right there. If I'm talking to a safety guy or somebody that supposedly cares about their brother and their brother's keeper, and they say these things, but they aren't continuously learning, to me, that's actually a red flag to me, brother.
Yeah. Well, I always think about it this way. If I was to go out into the industry and to say, okay, I don't care if you're a lineman, I don't care if you're a safety man, I don't care if you're an operational guy, whatever your role is, I'd say, I want to find the people who care the most about this work in whatever area I'm at. I got a feeling that most of those people will end up being either trainers, safety professionals, people who are trying to give back, people who are trying to steward the industry. I think that people gravitate to safety roles are people who really care, especially folks that came up through the field. Of course, you got the guy that's, it's getting older, is looking for the gravy train, ride around the pickup truck and hand out safety glasses. You got that guy. But I think overall, when you look at the safety role, these are people who love the work, and they love protecting their friends and their coworkers, and they want to make sure that they're, it's up to every single one of us to make the trade what it is. The profession is whatever you put in it is what comes out of it, right? So it feeds on professionalism. It feeds on folks that are developing others. It feeds on people who take the time to make sure their tools are inspected. It feeds on is everybody's mind right for the day. All those things feed into the professionalism of our work. Mm-hmm. And the long-term effect of that is the more professionalism we have cooked into everything that we do, the trade stays strong for generations.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I've noticed, I watch you as far as your example, your leadership example. There's one thing that I've noticed as far as what you do, and I want to get a little nitty and I want to get a little gritty with you. And the one thing that you do, and you almost talk about gravitation. You really gravitate, I believe, without letting everybody know. You just do it almost naturally, I should say, which is a really neat trait. But you're also a gap bridger. So in other words, you bridge gaps, and I like to get your take, your perspective on bridging the gap between the worker, the guys out in the field that are getting all sweaty, they're getting sleep poured on them, they're working long hours, they're working in strange environments, very extremely dangerous environments. Give us some advice, give us some words on how do we bridge the gap between those folks, the make it happen folks, and the corporate folks, the folks that are inside the walls. They got AC in the summer, they got heat in the winter, and the worst case scenario that they experience is walking from their vehicle to their office, the service center, their big building. So how do we bridge that gap, Mike? We need some help, buddy. We really need help in that.
Well, I think these are my cold thoughts coming out. So I think at the very basic level, you have to love this industry. Mm-hmm. You have to, the reason I'm involved in so many different things is not because I'm chasing things as much as I want to know more. If this is the industry, if I want to stand in front of people and say, I represent this industry, I should know as much as I can, and that's why I do things with some of these IEEE codes and standards developments. I'm not an electrical engineer. I sit in those rooms and I'm like in awe of the things these guys know about stuff. But I'm in the room, right? I'm being affected by the environment. Just like you drop an ice cube in a glass of water, that will change the temperature over time. It's not smacking you in the face change the temperature. It slowly changes the temperature. If you put yourself in different environments, you're slowly raising the temperature or changing your temperature or gaining more experience. I just think that lust, if you want to say, I have lust for our industry. I love it. I love this industry so much, and every aspect of it, whether it's how projects are planned in advance, how they're built out and engineered and designed, how the operational people have to bid work and make sure that it's productive, how they have to set the project manager has to get everything lined up and everybody prepared, how the crew has to come in like surgeons and do their work without having any events, and everybody else in the office has helped support that. So I think you have to have love for the industry, and then I'll say this: put aside the bad actors, right? So if you have a spectrum of people who really care on this side and the people who don't care at all on this side, let's cut out those people who don't care at all. I don't even want to talk about those folks right now. So if you take people who care about the industry at all the way to the people that love the industry, you can start to figure out where the common interests are. And you can start to respect the role of all the different people. The journeyman lineman isn't going to go out there and build power lines if the contractor or the utility isn't setting up the work for them, right? And you're not going to set up the work for these guys if the engineers and designers aren't building it out on prints. You're not going to do any of that work if the supply chain isn't getting you the equipment that you need to do it. You're not going to do any of that work if the fleet mechanic isn't making sure your truck is ready the next day. So all these different folks are all just inputs into the bigger picture, which is, again, professionalism, a love for the trade. And so it's about being humble. And we've talked about this before, competent and caring. That to me, that's it. And if you're competent in whatever you've been tasked with doing and humble enough to say, hey, I need to be upskilled, or I need more information to be effective at my job, get to where you're effective at your job, and then start to think about your ecosystem, the people that are around you that help you be successful, and then think about how you help them be successful. And if you just spend a few minutes thinking about that interconnection, then you start to, then you get empathy, right? Then you start to say, okay, well, now I understand why the clerk is hollering at me because I don't have my time sheets or my paperwork in on time. Now I understand why the journeyman lineman needs an extra person on the job that day. All these different things, if we can be humble with each other. So I don't know if we talked about it before, we may have, but I always fall back on Patrick Lencioni has a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And so the opposite is also true. The things that make you a dysfunctional team, if you do the opposite of those things, will make you a functional team. And it's a pyramid. And, at the basic level is vulnerability-based trust, being able to just be humble and lay yourself out there and work together as a crew. And I think that does more for us than just, what we're getting done on the job site. I think it makes our lives better, and I think it helps with mental health.
Yeah, that's great. That bridging that gap, man. That's how we bridge the gap, right there. According to Mr. Mike Starner, that's how we bridge the gap, folks. So write all those points down. And I want to review one point that you brought up. This is interesting. That is the environment. So in other words, environ, right, which means to encompass, to surround, to encase, to encircle. Mint, from mente, means the mind. So you brought up a point as far as environment, and the environment that we started with prior to me asking this question, bridging that gap, was the difference of environment and experiences that the worker does during the day and goes through during the day compared to the CEO, compared to the a lot of the operations managers too that I see that stay in the office a lot. Man, I would like to see that gap bridged a little more often, Mike, to where those folks, and I've seen this in some cases, it's rare. I have seen where the CEO joins up with the crew, and the difference of the attitudes, the difference of friendship and line team on those inside those organizations are, I'm going to say this, they're night and day compared to where those corporate folks don't get out in the real world. And I would like to see where those corporate folks spend a little time talking with their line teams outside and watching and experience and asking questions and getting involved. I would like to see some more of that in bridging that gap, my friend.
No, I think you're right. It reminds me, we had a president at the utility I worked at. His name was Frank Heinz. Mm-hmm. And I remember this one day he came out on the job. Of course, he had his entourage. We took a break, to talk to the big dog, right? Mm-hmm. He sat down on a pole with us and put a dip in his mouth and just talked shop with us a little bit. How we're doing. Didn't give us the elevator pitch. Didn't try to impress us with his status or, his leadership prowess. He wasn't doing any of that. He was just talking to us like a bunch of guys out on the job site, which was good. So I think there's a couple different ways to answer that question. I think for the brass, for the CEO, for the C-suite, I think that, it doesn't have to be a big production. They just have to go visit the men and women in their office. Where's their office at? Go sit down. You don't have to sit on the pole butt. You can sit there and, at the back of the truck, or you can hand out some Gatorades or bring them a box of pizza or whatever and just talk about where the company's going, give them a 30,000-foot view of what's, if it's a utility, what are our shareholders, asking for, what's our public service commission looking for, how's our reliability metrics, how's our safety performance doing, what's the workload look like if you're a contractor, how much work are we getting? Are we going to be on system for a while? Do we see any new opportunities? Are we growing? Are we looking at expanding, looking into different scopes of work? If you're a frontline supervisor, though, a field leader, I think it's a different conversation. I think those guys have to be part of the crew. They have to, you're not going to be out there all day. You got some admin work to do. Admin is the biggest killer of a field leader. So if you're listening, if you have responsibility for field leaders, think about that, how much you load these people up with assignments.
Exactly.
But those folks, I had a boss that said, strive for 5. You need to be out on the job site 5 hours of the day. It doesn't have to be the same crew. You could, and some of that could be driving, but I don't want you sitting here staring at the computer or figuring out, the work plan or putting in outage requests or ordering materials or something like that. I want you managing field safety. So I think that's a different thing. And then you got folks in the middle. So it should never, for people who are trying to drive change and have an impact and have influence on that job site, your presence should not be some kind of unique circumstance that's never happened before. It should be, and at the field leader level, general foreman, frontline supervisor, that at that level, it should be so normal that you're on that job that they don't even think about it. Hey, Bruce, hey, Bob, whatever your name is. Hey, what's going on? You take care of whatever business you take care of, give any kind of coaching that you need to, if you got real serious things to address, of course you do that, but you should be out there just supporting the crew and just being recognized as one of them as much as you can. And, you have to maintain your separation where it makes sense, but it shouldn't be a surprise, shouldn't be a secret. That's where we run into trouble, right? You got especially with safety people that aren't from the tools. They want to drop out on the job site once every 2 weeks, and they're out there to criticize you the whole time. They don't really give you anything meaningful or encouragement as far as what's going right out there. They're not monitoring the work and actually doing their job as a safety professional, assessing work being performed and figuring out where opportunities to improve are. They're just out there to hey, I'm out here. I'm going to fill my report out and I'm going to get out of here as soon as I can because these guys look pretty mean. and that's not good either. So, I mean, it's a whole spectrum. I don't think there's one answer, Brent, to be honest with you. It depends on what your role is and your impact on field execution should drive, how often you get out there and be participating in that work. And that's even pretty funny for somebody.
Yeah. No, we're live. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
We are live here at Beer Meters, and the production crew is just on the other side of these walls doing what they do best.
Well, if people haven't been to your facility, they should. I mean, that's one of the things I think is really cool about Bierer Meters is just your organization, your facility, how you approach the equipment and tooling and things that you build. I think to see how that sausage is made, if you haven't done it, I encourage people to reach out to Brent and do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And all these principles, what's really neat in my heart, Mike, is all these principles that we brought up as far as today that you shared with empathy and love, humility, and all these principles. We actually share these and we live them in the factory. So, and I see the well-being of our employees and the happiness of our employees. In fact, it's been several years since somebody even left this organization. I mean, it's just amazing what we do here. But and I want to see and experience what we do here. I want everybody to experience that, Mike. And I think that's your goal as far as that gap bridger that you are. I think that's your goal because you know what it's like when people are happy. And that's a true thing. You know what it's like. And you know the opposite side of the coin too. And you know that itself becomes a hazard.
It's a people business. Mm-hmm. It really is. We like to say it's a pipes and wires business, but it's a people business. You're not getting anything done alone. Nobody is. Even if you're the hardest core journeyman lineman that's gloved everything from 9 volts to lightning, mm-hmm. you're still going to need help with something. You're going to be faced with something that you're going to need somebody's expertise in. And if you're humble enough to listen to the engineer that comes out with a solution for your problem and you work together on that, that's a different experience. And that builds trust and that builds relationships. Same thing. Like I mentioned with the safety person, are you out there to like berate people or, fill out your checklist? Or are you really trying to help people stay safe? Are you actually trying to prevent injuries and fatalities, right? And give them the safety person is should be the subject matter expert, not for the work, but in safety management techniques, right? Okay, you know the work. Here, I see how you're doing the work. Here's maybe the guardrails. Here's the compliance things that we have to do because otherwise we'll be non-compliant with OSHA or with the customer or our own safety program. Here, we have to do these things. Here's why we're doing those things. And how can I make that easy for you? Because look, these folks in the field, a lot of things that we come to them with that are kind of novel, new ideas, new things. If you don't spend the time to give them the why behind it, they're just going to be like, it's change. I don't remember the buck squeeze. Remember FR clothing as a requirement. Mm-hmm. Remember when you only put on goggles when you're closing a fuse. The safety glasses weren't a thing. I mean, all these things are advancements in the industry, and now we're comfortable when we use these things, but you can't just shove it down somebody's throat. You have to figure out a way. You have to have a change management plan. And I know that sounds very corny, but it can be as simple as, okay, who's it going to affect? And what do I have to do to make sure that they're getting all the information that they need? And what do I need to do to make sure that's successful?
Yeah, that's awesome. So outside line safety. So here's Mr. Mike, outside line safety, going around to many, many different contractors, many, many different states. I mean, outside line safety, when you say outside line safety, I could look at a map of the United States, one that's next to me over here. I could look at that map and I just imagine you're traversing all around this map, going to all these different contractors. And the one thing that I also see you do is bringing safety as far as a thing that's a unifier. It's a thing that needs to have unification, not segregation, but unification. And I see you bringing that between different contractors around the country. And kind of share a little bit about that ambition, man. You got that ambition.
Well, I mean, it's like I said before, I love it. You know, it's easy for me because I love it. I'm drawn to it. And, you know, my role is to support our contractors and, you know, our chapters. My major support is to support the chapter. And then, of course, they support the contractors that work within their areas. But we have a lot of direct relationships with contractors, especially the larger contractors. You know, they come to Nika National with certain issues, and we're able to address those things or work with the chapter to address those things. So it's a cool role. I get out there and just like everything else, I'm trying to figure out how can I, what is it that I do that I can add value to? You know, I'm just a guy that's floating around, and you might see me once in a year in your area. And so while I have the time with you, what's important? What should we be talking about? What information can I share? I try to talk about the unity. So when I'm out there, I try to talk about we're all in it together. You know, we're all swimming around in the same soup. Mm-hmm. And so no matter what silo or what bucket you're living in, everything that affects you is also going to affect these other people, right? And so having a common language, building alliances and partnerships, we do a lot with the the utility organizations like EEI and NRECA and APPA and some of the other organizations that are out there. We do a lot with safety organizations like National Safety Council, ASSP, Incident Prevention, the USLN. We do a lot with those folks just to make sure that we understand where the connection points are and that we can share ideas. Because if I can get around in an area that's having a certain issue and I just got back from another area that's kind of solved that problem, I can share that, kind of like a bee buzzing around pollinating. I get to go around and pollinate folks with good ideas and suggestions and you know, honestly, Brett, what I do the most is just advocacy. I just love on people. I just get out there and I show the linemen love. I show, you know, the contractors love. I show the utilities are trying to, you know, they're serving a whole different set of, you know, stakeholders, making sure that they're successful in what they're trying to do. Yeah. And I really think that's if I was to say what I do, I fly around and pollinate the safety flowers.
Well, first, a couple of things you brought up. You know, you're floating around like a butterfly and you're pollinating like a bee. So it sounds like something Muhammad Ali used to say, you know, but,
well, you know, the butterfly's mother line. You might know the line, but I'll share it with your listeners here.
Yeah.
So I'm like a butterfly. I go wherever I please and I please wherever I go. That's what I used to use with the ladies at the bar.
Yeah, well, it worked pretty well. You're still married, so your wife must want to hear that once in a while. Just whisper in my ear one more time, Mike. Right. One more time. One more time. It's close to Valentine. Say it again. Say it again.
That's right.
You know, so the pollinating and you know, you're stinging like a bee, and you got to sometimes. So let me ask you another question. And this is, we talked about some nitty and now I want to get into some gritty. You're working on this wood project and you can't stain it. In other words, you can't stain this wood project that you're making in your shop on your any free time that you may have, which isn't often, but you're working on this wood project and the last thing you got to do to finish it and it's complete, and then you can do something your wife wants you to do next, is you got to sand this thing. You got to sand it because there's some rough spots on this wood and you don't want to sit your tush on this wood and on that stain unless it's sanded. It's got to be smooth. So if you could say one thing that you would like to sand, that one topic that you would like to sand down and you could stain it, and then that finishes your line legacy. Your line legacy. Give me something that needs to be sanded. And I'm not being critical. You know what I mean. But that one thing that needs to be sanded that you're working on what can we do? What can we do to assist our line teams to be better than they are now? We always got to seek the better. So what thing can we stand on, Mike, and help us out? Because we need help. So we don't realize that we needed that sand job, but make us realize, bring us some help, what we need to focus on.
Yeah, well, I think what we need to focus on is finding our way with the profession, pride in the profession. I think over time, and I don't know when this started, it probably took a long time, but I think it happened quickly more recently. We started taking that fine, and I'm not a woodworker, but the finest saw that I have that leaves the least amount of sanding required. That's what I started with. And then I was like, well, it's a little easier if I use this crosscut saw. And now I'm really bearing down on it. That gets the job done faster, but it's a little rougher. And now I just think the trade has gotten to where we're like out there with the chainsaw. We're banging these storms out. We're making a bunch of money. We're telling jokes. We're on Instagram. We're doing silly stuff. We've degraded what it means to be a journeyman lineman. If I could do anything, I would start to get us back to that finishing saw where we're now. Part of that is just the environment that we're working in, right? We've got attrition like we've never seen it before. So, just the workforce is getting older and retiring and moving away from it. The new folks that are coming in, not all of them, but a lot of them, looking at this as like sexy work where I can make a bunch of money and, I can drag up whenever I want to, and I can go work wherever I want to. And if I get in an argument or a fist fight, I can just go to the next one. That's kind of bankrupting our trade. And I'll say it this way. It's like, if everything, remember I said the input, everything you put in is what you get out. Mm-hmm. Let's think about, during the course of our day, all the things that I do to be a professional are like deposits in the bank. If I'm out there acting like a knucklehead or unprofessional or not caring about if the contractor's successful, not caring if the utility's reliable, if I'm out there performing that way, then I'm making withdrawals. And it's only a matter of time before I'm going to bankrupt the trade. And I think that's what we're starting to see. I was with a bunch of trainers. We had our National Training Institute event in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where NICA IBW trainers from all over the country come, and we close in on the town of Ann Arbor and we do training for a whole week. And I was in front of our trainers and I said, "Oh, I want to know from you guys, what's the number one issue you have out there?" Right? Like, and it's all been experience and professionalism. It's, our bench strength, if you want to call it that. You think of a sports team that's got a whole bunch of ringers on the bench. They got a lot of strength on the bench. If you have one superstar and everybody else is kind of like just clinging onto their coattails and not contributing, that's a watered down bench. And I think we're starting to see some of that. So I'm not being judgmental. Folks listening to me, don't hit me up and cuss at me, but a journeyman lineman should mean something. It should mean, the apprenticeship, that should mean something. When you're an apprentice working for a master, if you think back long enough, you mentioned woodworking. If you're an apprentice and you're working under a master craftsman to build furniture, you're there to learn the trade and take what he's got to say as guidance and learn from that, and layers and layers of experience. Eventually you get to journeyman status, and now you get to do the same thing with the next apprentice. That whole process has been watered down and bastardized to the point where it's just, where can I go and make the most money? Not all guys. There's enough of them out there that I think it's degrading our industry in a way that we need to chase after that. So if I was going to make any suggestions out there, if you are one of these people, remember I talked about the spectrum, people that don't care at all, people that care a lot. If you're anywhere on the care a lot spectrum, think about what you can do to be positive voice on the crew. Mm-hmm. Hey, I know that new idea is kind of silly. It came out of nowhere, but how can we understand what the intent is and put this in practice so that we can help the contractor or the utility be successful? If they're on the operational side, you're the GF, and you're trying to get some work done with a tight deadline, and you're throwing 4 guys out there to do a 6-man job, and you're getting blowback from the crew. Take that as good feedback and say, okay, well, let me figure out how to solve that problem instead of just saying, oh, you guys are always looking to get out of work. So like I started off earlier, there's bad actors all over this thing. But if I was to say one thing that I could get out there and sand away on, it would be making sure that we as linemen understand that what we do today creates a foundation for the people that come after us. And that's not just, we talk about setting traps on the pole because we didn't turn the cutout a certain way, or we did this or we did that. We're going to set the next guy up for failure. That's in the short term. We need to think about how we setting the next guy up for failure in the long term. And it's how we train apprentices. It's how we approach our work. It's how we perform job briefings. It's how we stop and ask questions when we need to. It's about responding to the needs of the workers. It's about making sure that we're bidding the work in a way that we're able to make money, but still give the workers what they need to be successful. All of that. All of that.
Man, that was awesome. Finding our way. So that is a challenge. You brought up some key points. You brought up pride in what you're doing. You brought up respect for one another, not value the paycheck, but value what you're doing. The paycheck is a byproduct. So don't even wasting time focusing on the paycheck. I just got paid today and I was supposed to get paid Monday, but I don't think of these things. It's like, I don't need to think about these things. I just focus on my job. And Denise is like, oh, Brent, hey, your paycheck's right there. It's like, oh, okay. And it's like, but I don't focus on those things, but value, investment into one another, investment
Yes.
as far as your mental capacity, investment as far as your heartstrings. We got to teach us professional. What does it mean to be a professional apprentice? What does it mean? How come we're not teaching our apprentices what it means to be a professional as an apprentice? What does that look like?
Yeah.
I know Curtis Bradley came by and spoke today. Welcome to line work. And that's exactly, man, it's going to be a great 76 ECOS Lineman Safety National Webinar 76. What is it? Welcome to line work. What does it mean to start and get that foundation? And man, all these points, how come we're not starting with our apprentices at that level? How come it's always, can you climb the pole? Can you rescue this guy? Can you learn mouth to mouth? You got DOT. No, man, build a frame. No. How come we're not teaching them these other attributes that would change and turn the ship around, Mike? And you nailed it. And I think that's one reason. What you just said, you nailed it. What you just said, I think, is a major contributor to our continuing SIFs. I believe it's a major contributor, that bit of the work that needs to be sanded. You're right.
Yeah, well, it at a minimum, it's getting in the way. I mean, it's like if we're going to make folks that have been paying close attention to statistics know that overall, if you look at the occurrence of injuries overall, it's been a steady trend downward for many, many years, right? And if you look at fatalities, we're not seeing a lot of improvement there, but we still are experiencing way less fatalities than we used to have in the early days of line work, right? So, in a lot of ways, if you pull back, not in the right now, but pull back a little bit and look at the trend lines, it's never been safer to be a lineman. It's because of that collective effort. It's the continuous improvement mindset. And if we can get out of our own way and we can have conversations on the jobs. I remember when I was a supervisor at the utility and we had a storm assignment to run out of state crews. So I was essentially, the dispatcher, system operator, whatever term you want to use, giving direction for the contractors, the crews, they have bird dogs running them. But if they came to a fuse or working a circuit, they would report with me. And so I went out to visit those guys one time, a bunch of guys that were working, and we had, I forget where they were from, but they started off their job. They all huddled around in a circle and had a moment together before they started any work. And then I observed every single person, their shirts were all tucked in, their uniforms were like nice and neat, and they're in storm, right? They could be a ragtag outfit, who knows? But they looked like they were top notch, like they just walked off right off a shelf, high and tight, shirts tucked in, professional. They just had that moment together. Now they're having a job briefing. Then, the foreman pulled out some of the tools and they're laying it out on a tarp and he's going through and inspecting. And it was really cool to see that at least in this one company, this one contractor that was responding to this event, their culture was such that they were going to be the best that they could be in everything that they do. And that it had an impact on me as an observer. I can't imagine what the impact was for people that work on that crew. We hear about apprentices that don't get their, they get browbeat or they don't have a say in things, or they get kind of pushed around, or we'll hear, the apprentices aren't paying attention. They're not on their phone. They're on their phone. They're doing this, that, or the other, or the foreman's never around. He's out there doing this. I didn't see any of that with this crew. So whatever that is, whatever that crew had, or whatever kind of culture that was, man, if you could just, copy and paste.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's neat. And I bet you that you had a warm heart when you saw that. You recognized it, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, it was just, you felt that there was something different about that crew. Yeah. And then the opposite of that is the crew that you go to. This is a story I heard recently, and a supervisor went on a job site. The crew was working on a project. The first person that they went up to talk to was a new apprentice on a job, and and they just said, like, if you had to get that guy, journeyman was up there working in the air, said if you had to get that guy down with the lower controls of that bucket, could you do it? And the apprentice said, I don't know how to do it. Wow. And then he said, well, who's the foreman on this job? The kid didn't even know his foreman's name, didn't even know his first name.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's the other side of this thing. You get folks that show up on a job and they're just they're just a composite of individuals working independently to build some project. And it's just happenstance that it all comes together at the end. And I think that's what drives a lot of these events too. So, I mean, those are two examples of like a crew that's really on it and a crew that's not. And of course there's the spectrum in between, but I don't know. Well,
you basically, that other side of the spectrum that you mentioned, that scenario number two, the second one, man, we're taught. Now think about this, Mike. We're taught and we're trained to recognize risks and to recognize hazards. We mitigate them, we substitute, we eliminate those things. But you actually identified a hazard. That is a hazardous job site right there.
And these aren't popular things to talk about, right? Because the guys will get bent out of shape and say, "Oh no, we're all true professionals," and it's just management's always beating us down, and management will say, "No. I can't do anything with these guys they give me. What am I supposed to?" So we're all like, we're like planting a flag on our hill, and we're going to die on that hill, and we're prideful, and we're not really thinking about what are we really trying to do together. If back to our earlier conversation, if we all put our heads together and figured out what the problems were, no matter where you were in this industry, no matter where you were on the crew or within your company, if you all put your heads together and figured out, humbly, how can we make this thing better? It can happen. I mean, there's great examples of that. Safety committees, we have these regional safety professionals that work with the trust funds that, are jointly funded by IBW NECA trust funds. We have, especially in the Northeast, we have these safety directors that report sort of to a trust versus being with the contractor or with labor. And those guys are pros that are out there trying to. So, I mean, everybody listening to this show today is probably point to an example where things are going great, but if they're honest with themselves, they also know where there's opportunities to make things better. And that, to me, that's the gap we got to close. That's the wood we have to sand. That's the difference we need to make, is figuring out how can we do all these things together without being prideful, understanding that the profession is stronger when we put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. So I want to share something with you, Mike, an experience that I had that I believe with the National Electrical Contractors Association is a powerful tool. And so I'm going to share this with you, and give me your take on this real quick. But I'm going to give you this powerful tool, and you may already be aware of it. But I experienced it this one time. And a large investor-owned utility, they were holding a safety conference, 2-day safety conference. And this is neat. That's why I want to give you this. This is a beautiful layout. And we're coming to have a feast here, brother.
We'll write it down.
Okay, so, and I experienced it only one time in my 11 years at bierermeters. But what they did is they had all this investor owned. They had all their contractors that work on their system, and the contractors, they get the dirty stuff, they get the hard stuff. A lot of them, that, and they get the things that the utility they don't want to really invest their folks and their trucks into this. So let's get the contractors a bid on this and let's let them do it. So they brought all their contractors in, and I would get, it was a large utility. I'm guessing there was about 4 to 5, maybe even 6 different contractors. I know for sure at least 4. And the room was filled with operations managers. They were the key get or done employees of the contractors, some CEOs too. I mean, it was really a great mix. Some lead linemen, and they brought them all in this room, and there was over 100. Okay, it was a packed room, and what they did is each contractor had to share a safety topic, and the overall gist of this was back to basics, safety, back to basics. And they brought all their folks in here, and each one shared on their system all together with this investor-owned utility. And they were, now listen to this, they were required to participate. So there's a lot of 2 days. That's a great investment. And they came out of there, and you could feel it. I came out of there. It's like, wow, this was awesome. This was intimate. And the utilities' expectations were, they spoke too. The utilities' expectations of what they expect as far as safety, and their contractors sometimes working together jointly on, side by side, for this guy's doing this, these guys are reconductoring, and the other guys are doing insulators or whatever. But it was really neat to see that expectations of safety, protocols, and a semblance of unifying together on what they expected. But they voiced what they expect, and they had an opportunity to come up to that level, back to basics, right here. That was awesome.
Well, in the absence of that, you're relying on your terms and conditions of your contract, general service agreement, what the language in there, and that's a one and done. You sign on the paper and you're out of there. You might not have to rub elbows with the utility folks other than the project inspector. And so it's a one and done thing. So I think that is a best practice. I've seen some examples of that, contractor safety meetings where, in some areas it's a required attendance, and others it's an opportunity. But I think that is a best practice, especially if you have an opportunity for contractors to come in and do a presentation on the topic. If they want to come in and talk, because let's face it, and I'm not trying to ruffle the utility people's feathers, but the contractors are traveling all around the country and exposed to a lot more of this work than your people are. And so, that's not to say they're the subject matter expert, but they have a lot of insight as far as some of the issues that are happening around the country that maybe locally at the utility you haven't really had a good handle on, or you haven't experienced at all. And so looking at the contractor as a partner, that's always the best practice, especially, that's my advice too for, following an incident. You could say, hey, listen, I expect you to provide a report and I want to see it on Monday, or you can be an active participant in an investigation. Of course you gotta manage, co-employment issues and work direction and all that thing, but there's an opportunity to work together on incident investigation. Why not invite a contractor to sit in on a utility incident and give some expertise? So I think there's a lot of that kind of sharing that can be done. I think that, having contractors and utilities share as much as they can only help us get better. I can't think of a reason why that wouldn't be true.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. So, man, it's already past an hour, Michael, and I think you gave my wife. She makes really good stews. All right, roast beef, and she brings all these ingredients together in her stews, whether it's chicken soup or all this stuff. But she brings all these vegetables in. She does it just so, man. And I think this recipe today, your live wire story, man, I would encourage everyone that's listening to Mr. Mike here, sharing his live wire story, to, again, take this book, this man, Mr. Mike here, take him, who is himself a book, and add it as a chapter into your own book. And I tell you, man, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you that you're going to be way better off. And there's so much flavor and ingredients in his recipe that, I mean, it's going to be a show winner. He'll get first place in this recipe. He'll win it every time. I'm telling you. So
make sure you take some Tums because it might get a little spicy.
That's great, man. Yeah, man. So any parting words, Michael?
Brent, it's always good to hang with you. One of the things I like about this is that we're friends and that we can talk about the things that we love. And hopefully people that are listening here, you're my new friends. And if you ever see me somewhere, come up and talk to me. I'd love to hear your story. And if you're a developing safety professional, that's one of my key interests, is how to make safety professionals as best they can be in this trade. So hit me up with that. Brent, keep doing what you're doing. Keep growing the the momentum here with this thing. And I guess if I don't talk to you between now and, well, I will. I'll see you at IOTA, right?
Next week, brother.
Yep,
next week.
See you there.
All
so
right.
I'll see you there, and then of course, Valentine's Day next year.
You got it. Amen. Amen to that. All right, Michael. Good. Hey, take care of yourself. Take care of your lovely wife. Enjoy that vacation.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.